Hi guys, today we're going to be starting our herb seeds and a few other little miscellaneous things because we are about 10, maybe 11 weeks to our average last frost date, and it is go time for some of these slower growing things or things that can basically just live in their pots and not get harmed by that at all. Welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Kayla and this is 5 Canadian Acres, where I'm growing a garden up in Zone 3 in Alberta, Canada. And I just would like to share as much as I can about growing in a short season with a cold climate. So the first few things I'm going to start are just your typical normal herbs. I'm going to start here with rosemary. Now, a lot of these things, they either have a really long germination time, which, some seeds after 2 days are popping through, and some can take 3 weeks, 4 weeks until they actually start to emerge from the soil. And let me tell you, that is one of the worst times it is for starting seeds, because you second guess, you're like, are they going to emerge? And then lo and behold, one day they surprise you and they start popping out of the soil. So again, I'm just going to multi-sow these seeds. I'm going to put in a few seeds per cell. And rosemary is notoriously hard to grow. I generally will start, a little 6-cell tray like this and maybe get one to grow every year. But I always just like to try. I have the space, I have the seeds. Now these seeds are really small, so all I'm going to do is just sprinkle a little bit of soil on top. And then, weird leaf in there, a little bit of soil on top here, and then I'll just give it a gentle pat, and they will hopefully be able to sprout for me here in a few weeks. And next we have oregano. There are a few different varieties of oregano out there. I just grow the Greek oregano, or really honestly whatever oregano I found at the store for seeds that time, because this is a burpees seed. So it's hard to order burpees. I don't know if you can order them to Canada. I have to look into it, but either way, you can find burpee seeds at some of the bigger stores. And when you're out there grocery shopping, it's hard to not just temply pull a couple of seeds off the shelf there just to add to your stash. Now these seeds are actually really tiny. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pack down the soil first, because I don't really want them to get too far down there. And then they're so tiny. Sometimes when they're really this small, obviously you're going to overseed the tray. Sometimes it's nice just, maybe use that to sprinkle it. And I'm just going to very, very lightly, barely sprinkle any on here. And then really as I water them, I'm just going to make sure that they as the soil will kind of rise around them, make sure that they're fully covered. And then that should be good enough for those. And next we're going to grow some thyme. Again, this is another great one to cook with. Now for some of these herbs that, take a little bit longer to germinate, are a bit harder to grow, take a long time to grow, don't be afraid to just go down in the spring and get, you can get usually a rosemary, oregano, little packs for fairly cheaply at the greenhouses. And then from there, you can go ahead and grow it, split it, and you can have multiple little plants for your garden. These tend to grow really well. Any sort of these perennial herbs, those are herbs that come back year after year. Now, let's say they might not be perennial for your area. I have had oregano and thyme come back. Then they, came back after like a couple years, and then it died off. Rosemary, I've never had come back. I think it's pretty much, you'll see on the back here, it's zone 8 to 10 hardy. I'm in zone 3. It's not going to overwinter. A lot of people actually grow rosemary in their house as a house plant, and a lot of these herbs you can just grow on your kitchen counter or put them all around your house as house plants, and that's a really nice thing to do as well. Next, I'm going to start some garlic chives. I have quite a few of just regular chives in the garden, and they are super hardy. They come back. They're usually the first things to grow every spring. So I kind of wanted to start some garlic chives to kind of, just have a little bit of a different variety, because, I like that. Let's get rid of these bigger chunks. Sometimes in these soils you will have bigger kind of pieces of wood, which is fine. But when you're planting little seeds, you don't really want them to, inhibit that sprouting. They're fine if your plants, transplanting or for bigger plants. Some people will take, the little bales of soil they get and sift it out. I usually just pack what I can and then just pick off the top kind of surface if there's some big chunks. Next, we're going to start some spearmint. Now, I have a lot of regular mint growing in my garden. I don't know if it was last year, or I think it was the year before when I planted it. Mint can be invasive. It will take over an area. And I was like, okay, I'll plant it. I don't care if it takes over. And I don't care that it took over, but yes, it did take over. I'll show you this spring, summer as it grows. I love it though, because you can just harvest as much as you want and I don't have to be afraid. Mow it down, it smells delicious. So spearmint is a little bit different than the mint I have growing in my garden. Spearmint is really good. It's kind of just a milder form of mint. It's really good for You know, kids, if you're using it medicinally, sometimes the stronger mints can be a little bit too harsh, so the spearmint is really good for that. Again, another plant that you can go ahead, just grab a small little one at the greenhouse in the spring, grow it in your garden or in a pot. It'll be really prolific, and then you can just go ahead and bring it inside for the winter. Warning, don't bring bugs into your house. There's a whole process to do that. Or just enjoy it for that year, plant it, and hopefully it'll come back next year. I highly suggest everybody grows some sort of herbs in their garden. They don't take up a lot of space. A lot of them are perennial. They'll come back every year. You let them go to flower and seed, and they bring in so many pollinators. And in all honesty, herbs are really expensive at the store. So it's not hard to grow in a small little bit, a lot of herbs. And just growing something yourself, especially organically, you have just such a really good product that is going to have all of those benefits for your body. Next, we're going to start some catnip. Now, catnip is part of the mint family. Again, it will grow and it will come back every year. And I have found it doesn't take over like the mint at all. I have a few places in my garden where it grows, and it's really hardy, but it doesnn't take over and, you know, grow a lot. So do I need to start catnip? Probably not. I have a lot, but I actually want to start a bunch of rows because, again, catnip is so expensive at the stores. And I can tell you, my cats got into the last of the catnip that I had. And while it is great for the cats, it's super good for humans as well to drink in our teas. It's got kind of that calming effect. So between us and the cats, we like a lot of catnip. And actually, catnip is another one of those when you let it go to flower. And I have tons of videos where the bees are just buzzing. They love the catnip once it goes to flower. So that's something I don't want to cut down every single stalk that I have. I'd like to let some kind of grow up in order for those bees to have some food. Okay, next we're going to start some chamomile. Now again, I have chamomile. Chamomile is not necessarily a perennial, but it's what we call a self-seeding annual. So it grows only once that year, but then the seeds kind of fall and it comes back in the same spot every year. And I have known this to be true in my garden. But again, I kind of want to expand the chamomile patch. Another one of those ones that's great for teas and is really expensive in the store. So this is actually, it's called a Bodegold chamomile. There's a German chamomile is quite popular. This one was advertised to have, you know, more of those medicinal properties. But really, there's so many other factors that kind of go into what are the, you know, constituents in that plant, how you grow it, the water, all that kind of stuff. I'm never really ever going to get it tested to see if it actually does, but it was just something to see if it grew. It's also supposed to bloom a little bit earlier than some of the other varieties, which is always nicer with our short seasons. Anything that blooms earlier or matures earlier or ripens earlier, I'm all for that. Next, we're going to grow some lavender. I love lavender. It's probably one of my favorite scents. This is a Munstead lavender. It is said to come back in my area, although it's conflicting. Some say zone 3, some say zone 4. I have had lavender come back once, like 1 year, and then nothing since. I do have some lavender planted from last year, so we'll see if it comes back this year. But pretty much I kind of grow it as an annual. Maybe one day I'll be able to like perennialize it and get it really established. But for now, I just start it every year and have it as a small little annual in my garden. Next we have anise hyssop. Now this is saying it's a perennial to zone 4. I grew it for the first time last year, so we'll see if it comes back. I'm always going to start some more in case it doesn't. I know the bees seem to really like this one too. And they sort of, you know, like really like the herbs. They have a lot of fragrance to them, so I think that's what attracts a lot of the insects. So if you can grow these nice fragrant things in your garden, then you're going to attract a lot of those beneficial insects. Next I have is valerian. This is grown for the root. It will flower, but you harvest the root after the frost. I did grow some last year. Again, it's a zone 4 perennial, so we'll see. We had kind of a cold winter. I'm not sure. It seemed warm at the beginning, but we had quite a few cold snaps, and now we're kind of getting into our fall spring. It is really warm. It's probably almost 30 degrees in the greenhouse right now. I think it's +7 Celsius outside. So we're going to get cold again, but we're just going to enjoy this while we can. It's also nice because it's going to get that snow starting to melt and just get everything kind of started and prepped, ready for spring in the garden. Just going to plant the rest of those ones there. And that was called a Lubelski valerian. It says it's more potent than the other ones. Again, we don't really know if it is. I guess marketing is really good. We have 2 more to start here, and I don't know if they're classified quite as herbs, but celery, we have to start that now. It takes a long time to grow. This is a Utah 5270. You don't see a lot of varieties of celery, especially at the store. I'm pretty sure this one is the standard one for here. I grow celery every year. It's It grows okay. Honestly, I'm not the biggest celery fan. It's a little bit bitter. It's great for cooking though, and again, something that you can grow in your garden. Every little bit helps. I think the biggest trick with celery is to make sure that it's got lots of water and that it won't be so bitter, as well as what I've been told is the variety. So this next variety is called the Pink Plume. Now I grew this last year for the first time, and I did notice it had kind of a bit of a milder flavor. So we'll start these ones again. If any of you guys grow celery and have a different variety that grows really well or has a good flavor, let me know, because I'm always on the lookout for a nice, you just want that crisp, juicy celery that's not bitter. If it's a bit bitter, that's not bad for when you're cooking and such, because it's good to have that sort of bitter flavor added to our food. But when you're just, wanting to munch on a stick of celery or, celery and dip or something, you don't really want too much of that bitter flavor. So those are all the herbs that I'm going to be starting from seed this year. I'm probably going to be picking up more, but I'm going to get them that are already started. I'm trying to kind of narrow down what seeds I start. I'm sure these are going to take a long time to sprout, but I will keep you updated as they go. And then of course, coming up right away, we have lots more seeds to start. And I'm also going to do a big experiment with the high tunnel that I grew last year and potentially be planting some seeds in the ground in the next couple of weeks. As always, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.